just like you. I am just a mother who 21 years ago, they said, you have a profoundly deaf child. She won't talk. She'll get no more than possibly a third-grade education. So what you need to do is go get a signing book, teach her signs, and teach her a vocation. And hopefully that will give her some semblance of a life. And at that time, just like so many parents, I think it was Linda who said she was in a hole. She was devastated, and I kind of listened. But then I had some wonderful, wonderful intervention, which changed and made a totally different way in my life as well as in Heather's life. There are some things I want to read to you, so I'm going to read them first so that I won't forget them and not give them to you exactly. But as a teacher, I have found that if I can find a philosophy to kind of back what I'm doing, it puts a little bit more credence into what I'm doing. And when I talk to parents, it sounds good. And when I was trying to convince my school system some of the things that I wanted to see them do with Heather, then I found that if I had something to kind of back me up a little bit, that was good too. Experience often shows that success is due less to ability than it is to attitude. If you would like to win, but don't think you can, you probably won't. Almost everyone would like to have more self-confidence, but in order to give in this area, in order to get it and to grow, you must believe in yourself and have faith in your abilities. Teamwork is the catalyst that yields excellence from shared strengths. And I want to read that one again. Teamwork is the catalyst that yields excellence from shared strengths. And that's one of the key secrets here. Think big, believe big, act big, and the results will be big. Robert F. Kennedy said, only those who dare to fail greatly can achieve greatly. Just because it's never been done before doesn't mean it can't be done. Someone has got to do it first, and it just might as well be you. Last June in '94, when Heather was crowned Miss Alabama, I did not know then how drastically our lives were going to change. We always knew that Heather was a unique person. Even as a child, she was very, and by the way, moms, if you have a child that's very tenacious, don't apologize for him. Heather was probably one of the worst tenacious kids I have ever seen in my life. But that was very, very important because your child needs to have that push. Now, we need to make sure that they don't get carried away with it, but they do need that push. And I knew from the very beginning that Heather was going to do something with her life. It was just a matter of helping her get on that road. And when she was crowned Miss Alabama, there were many who were thrilled that she was Miss Alabama. But I'm not going to stand here and tell you that everybody was thrilled, because there were an awful lot of doubting Thomases out there. Including some of the board members of Miss Alabama. They just didn't think Heather could handle the responsibility. And I can see where a lot of people would be that way, because there's an awful lot of misinformation out there about what it is to be profoundly deaf. But that's where we've got to come in and really educate the public and make them see that we can make a difference. And that's what Heather hopefully is doing this year as she crosses the nation, is showing that she can speak and that she is a viable person and making a very good contribution. We were talking last night at a group outing that we had here, and one of the things that I said is that really Heather is not the exception, folks. She's not. I love her, and I'm proud, and I'm thrilled to death. But the thing about it is, we have so many wonderful young adults and young people out there that are just like Heather, that are doing fantastic things, but because we have been so successful in getting them into the mainstream of life, they've become invisible. And stop and think about that. We've done a fantastic job. They are invisible. Everybody thinks of them as hearing, not as hearing impaired. And so we can pat ourselves on the back and say, that was great. But we still got to somehow get the word out that, yes, it is great, and these kids are great, and they're doing a fantastic job with it. But there are lots of them out there. Back in 1975, 76, when I found out that Heather was deaf and I had to do something about it, and they told me that Heather would never talk, I want you parents to understand that if you're confused and you're starting out in this, that's okay, because I'm an educator, and I consider myself a very intelligent person, and I believed them. I honestly and truly believed them at first. I went out, I bought a book, and we started learning signing exact English. And up until I started teaching her signs, at least Heather was attempting to make verbalization and to make sounds. Once I started teaching her signs, she went mute on me, and that bothered me. Now, that's kind of surprising that bothered me, because I keep thinking I must have Italian blood somewhere in me, because I use my hands. I told Donna, I said, I don't know if I can stand here and talk behind this mic, because I'm a walker. I'm very kinesthetic. And so when they said use sign language, I thought, I can handle that. I can do that, no problem. But I found that it bothered me that Heather was not speaking. So I went down to Florida State University, and we had Heather tested. Like so many of you, I think we kept going to different people so that somebody would come up and say, she's not really deaf. We can just put the little tubes in the ears and everything will be okay. But it didn't happen. But Dr. Haas gave me some of the best advice that I have ever been given, and I want to share it with you. He told me that he said there are 5 ways that you can educate a deaf child. What I needed to do was to go visit, and he gave me the addresses in various places that I could find these programs. Go out and visit every single program before you make up your mind. And don't just visit one, visit several if you can. Because every program has its stars. You go to Total Communication, they've got their stars. You go to Cued Speech, they've got their stars. You go to Total Signing, they've got their stars. Every program has its stars. The secret, though, is this. It's the parent who buys into this program 110%. If the parent buys into a particular program, their child can't help but succeed. So he said, really, the key is up to you as to whether or not your daughter will be successful. If you don't feel comfortable with signs, then Heather will never do anything other than just mediocrity. She'll just do what she has to do. So I started visiting the program. And as I walked into the various programs, I judged it by what I was feeling. And when I walked into certain programs such as Just Complete Signing or Total Communication, I felt like an outsider. I didn't know what was going on. And I'm a teacher. And I was lucky that what was written up on the board sort of helped me know what was going on. And any communication that I might have had with any of the students in the classroom was done totally through a teacher or an interpreter, because I didn't know signs. For some reason, I resisted the signs myself. When I went to visit Doreen Pollock's clinic out in Denver, Colorado, the first thing that hit me is I walked in and there was just sounds all over the place. Secondly, I communicated with every single child that was there, or every single young person that was there. No interpreter, not the parent, the kid and I were communicating, because I was asking them, how do you feel about this program? Do you like it? And when I walked out and went back to Dothan, Alabama that weekend, I knew that even though auditory verbal was going to be difficult, we couldn't have picked anything harder. I mean, let's face it. When you're going to teach a profoundly deaf person behind their back, behind the hand or the piece of paper, I mean, first of all, back in Alabama, they thought I'd lost my mind anyway. Because everybody knows that if you're deaf, you can't speak. You just know that. She wanted Miss America, but let's face it, there's not too many young girls out there that would not love to be Miss America. I mean, we watched Miss America every year. I have 3 girls. We played Miss America for 4 days afterwards. You know, the girls each got their turn, and then I got my turn. So we played for 4 days. So when she got into it, it was really to help me finance her college, because it's a scholarship organization, and they have some terrific scholarships out there. So we ended up, the first 2 years, Heather's tried doing what she called her STAR program, and it was good, but it didn't make the impact that it needed to. So the 3rd year, after we had visited Miss America, and Heather had decided this next year is going to be my year, and that's exactly what she said. I am going to be Miss America. Now, I couldn't come back and tell her, well, Heather, there might not be Miss America in your future, because I had been telling her all along, if you want it bad enough and you're willing to work hard enough for it, you can do it. So at this point, my sister and I were committed to really help Heather get out there and go for Miss America. So we came back, we figured, what's the weakest part and what's the hardest part for any hearing impaired person? Speech, communication. So we thought it's got to be the platform. That's where we've got to put most of our emphasis. And we came up with the STARS program. And the STARS program was nothing that was made up. It was the way in which we raised Heather and the way in which I raised my other children. And as she told you, it's got 5 points. And I want to quickly talk to you about those 5 points from a parent's perspective viewpoint and from a teacher's viewpoint. First thing she tells the kids is that we chose a STAR because it's got 5 points. And if you can visually see something, then it helps you to remember. And it really does. It helps. It helps me remember. The first point on that STAR is the positive attitude. And you've got to have the positive attitude. When Heather was growing up, a lot of people, or some of the young people in her school, they didn't mean to be cruel to Heather, but Heather was different. And they would not be as friendly with Heather as she would like for them to be. And she would come and she'd say, Mom, they're not my friend because I'm deaf. And so I told her, and I firmly believe it, that Heather is not handicapped. Someone who is mentally retarded is not handicapped. To me, the most handicapped person in the world is a negative thinker, because those are the people that are going to bring you down. Those are the people that will never succeed. And so what I told Heather was, Heather, you've got to change their attitude towards you. And it's not fair. Life, I would like to say that life is fair, but unfortunately, maybe they're not being your friend because they don't know how to approach you or how to talk with you. It's going to be your responsibility to go up and make the first effort, and maybe even the second and the third, but you don't give up and you go do it. And she realizes that those people needed her friendship a lot more than she needed theirs. And that became kind of the way we got through a lot of those crises with the teenage years. And believe me, there are a bunch of them. But you just really have to get in there and tell your children, They're great. They're unique. They are unique. But so is every child. Every child is unique. And if Heather's deafness makes her different, then that's okay. One of the neatest things is that at her Miss America interview, they asked her, if you could have your hearing back, would you take it? And she said, Mom, at first I said, yeah. And then she said, wait a minute, I want to take that back. And they kind of looked at her like, you know, wait a minute, what is she getting ready to say? And she said, you know, my being hearing impaired has made me who I am and has brought me really close to God. And perhaps if I had my hearing back, I would lose that real sense of who I am. So, no, I don't think I would want to have my hearing back like a normal hearing person. I am glad I am who I am. And that made me feel so good, because when you can get your child, hearing impaired or not, to say, I'm glad and I'm proud of who I am, then you've got that positive attitude and you've got the success road ahead of you that is just going to be tremendous. There's no stopping these kids once they get their minds made up. The second point in her STAR program is that you've got to have a dream and you've got to believe in yourself. And parents, I know sometimes working with the school system is hard, but those kids have got to have that education. They've got to. Marva Collins says it best, I think, when she says, if you are well educated, nobody can take advantage of you and nobody can rob you of your dreams. And that's key. And she tells the kids, you don't just have one dream in your life. You can have many dreams. And I hope that you as adults have dreams and goals, because the day that you don't have a goal, the day that you don't have a dream, then you've given up on life. Life should be lived to its fullest every single day. The third point is that you've got to be willing to work hard. And she gets up on national television and she tells you, I had to work very hard, and she did. And we wouldn't let her do less than the best. One thing I have found out is that if you expect the best, you're going to get the best. If you expect from your kids and give them excuses and empower them not to do something because of a physical disability or just for any reason. I see it in school all the time. They make excuses. I teach math. By the way, new math has been gone for a long time, folks. Don't go in and tell your math teacher it's the new math that they can't do, because it's not that. Math is math. But it always has been, always will be. But if you empower your child to come up with an excuse, you are empowering your child to fail. So if you expect the best, you're going to get the best. And I've told Heather for a long time, I have found this so true, that if an A comes to you easy, you don't remember that teacher. You don't remember what you learned. You really don't. But I teach my kids in the 7th grade a trig unit, and in it we have sine, cosine, and tangent. And those kids, it's hard for them. They've never seen this concept before. And in the 7th grade, those kids working very, very hard, when they make an A on it, they are ecstatic. They can't wait to get out and tell everybody what they've made. They share it with other teachers. They share it with their families. And that's what I'm trying to get across to my kids at school, and what hopefully I've gotten across to my kids at home. If it's worth doing, you do it well, and you go after it, and you don't choose the easy road. You choose the road that is going to get you to that dream that you want, and if that's full of rocks and boulders, then you're going to have to move those rocks and boulders out of the way. We've taught our kids a bad word, and that is the word can't. I want to see that word thrown out of our vocabulary. And I want to see them teach them that failure is not a bad word. I can't tell you how many times we failed to say something correctly or to get a concept. Failure, according to Webster, is just something that didn't work. And that's all it is. And we need to teach them that when we have obstacles to overcome, that's simply opportunities for creative thinking. And you've got to get out there and you've got to be creative. And that brings me now to the fourth point, which is you're going to have to face those obstacles. You've got to be honest. Barbara Walters asked me if the correct, and I really can't even remember the politically correct word. What was it? Physically limiting adults or whatever. I don't know. That sounded so negative to me, it just went over my head, and I didn't get it. I know we've looked at these in different ways, but you know, folks, a label is just a label if you just leave it as a label. If you just give it as an informative word. People ask Heather, I think Jay Leno asked Heather, how do you want to be called? And she said, well, I am profoundly deaf. That's it, you know, big deal. And that's exactly what it is. It tells me what we're dealing with. And I told her, I said, I don't know what the correct word is. But for us, we never looked at it as a handicap. We looked at it as an obstacle for creative thinking. Now, I shared this last night, and I want to share it very quickly with you about what I mean about creative thinking. For 2 years before Heather got Miss Alabama, she was first runner-up to Miss Alabama. I personally felt like she had won both those other years. But, you know, there's no accounting for judges. But, and thank goodness God in his infinite wisdom did not let her get it the first 2 years. She wasn't ready. She was ready the third year to go on and make a really big difference in this nation. But one of the things, a friend of ours came and said, you know, I don't know how to tell you this. And I said, I'm always an honest and open person. I don't have time to deal with little games. So I told him, I said, just tell me. And he said, you're going to get mad. And I said, no, I won't. Just tell me. And he said, you know, the reason I think Heather's not getting Miss Alabama is because back in the judge's mind, they have this concept that a deaf person can't do the things that a hearing person can do. But they like Heather so much, they really love Heather, they're scared to ask her that question. And I said, well, we've known that. You know, now the next solution is whenever my friends tell me anything, I say, I don't care if you criticize. I may get mad a couple of days, but I'll come back. But the second thing is you've got to tell me a positive way to approach it. Criticism's okay as long as you come up with constructive applications for solving the problem. So he said if there was a way we could work that in, if she could somehow work that in, God opened the door for us on that third time. And they gave us 2 minutes for Heather to come in, or all the girls to come in, and just tell the judges something about themselves. They could talk about anything they wanted to. And so we chose at that point to let Heather address that question. She talked to them a little bit about what it was like to be deaf. And people had told us before, don't bring up the issue of deafness. Now, I've never quite understood that, because as soon as Heather opens her mouth, you either know she has a hearing impairment or she's from Sweden. And she certainly doesn't look Swedish. So, you know, how do you avoid, and with the hearing aid right here too, and by the way, ladies, mothers that have girls out there, I too went through the hair covering the hearing aid. So I've been real tickled that she was willing to go on national television with her hair up showing the aid. But so she walked in and she talks to him for a little bit, and then she says, I know there is a question that each of you wish for me to answer, but you're scared to ask me. And she said, I'm going to tell you the answer to that question, and that is, do you think a hearing impaired girl can handle the duties of Miss Alabama and Miss America? And I kid you not, this is exactly what she did. I am here to tell you yes, and I'm that girl. And she hit that desk, that lecture. And she did it up at Miss America too. And I think that just really took them back. That, gosh, how does she know this question's in our mind? But she was so willing to be open with it. And that's hard for us to teach our kids, because they really don't want to be different. They want to be like everybody else. And yet, we've somehow got to help our children understand you've got to bridge that gap of being willing to say, hey, I'm profoundly deaf. I know we can communicate, but we're going to have to, I may have to ask you some time. Thank you. May have to ask for you some help. And the last thing is that you've got to build that support team. And I could not have done it without my speech therapist, without my help of my parents, my friends, my sisters. I couldn't have done what I did without the help of Heather's two sisters who served. They were only 2 and 3 years older than Heather, and they served as wonderful role models for her. And so you've got to be willing to ask for help. Parents, ask for help. I'm so convinced about the auditory verbal program, I'm willing to put it up against any program out there, and I'm saying, go ask. Go ask TC. Go ask these other ones. But then come back and take a real good look at what auditory verbal has to offer, and I'm convinced you will never go to the other programs. Eleanor Roosevelt said that the future belongs to those who can see the beauty in their dreams. And I am in a room full of dreamers. And I think it is wonderful to be in your presence. And I want you to know, parents, I am so proud of you for taking this step. I am so supportive of you. Speech therapists and teachers and audiologists, I just thank the good Lord for you having this insight and being willing to work with us. And I consider it a tremendous honor to be in this group among all these dreamers, because the future is truly our children's. Thank you very much.
Heather Whitestone, our Miss Alabama, of course, you may have read, is hearing impaired. No hearing at all in one ear, 5% hearing in the other. So I must ask you, you dance so beautifully, do you hear the music?
I can hear some sound with my hearing aid. But what I did, I feel the music and listen to the music for the first time for a couple of times. And then I count the number with the music that I memorized in my heart. And that's how I did.
That's how you do it.